Welcome to District 4's charter meeting. My name is Ebony DeBerry. I am your district deputy manager tonight, and I have the pleasure of introducing the host pastor, Pastor Mike Jones.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you all for coming, and we're certainly happy to be able to host you today. I'd like to ask the word prayer, if that's okay, and then we'll introduce our mayor, who is doing an outstanding job. I believe something really positive is going to happen in the house today. So we're grateful, amen. And so I just want to ask God's favor and his presence, and that we come together, and it'll be a powerful move tonight. Is that okay? And we trust that because we try to create the right atmosphere. Let's pray. Gracious and all-wise, eternal God in heaven, is again that we come thanking you for who you are and what you are to us. We thank you for this opportunity as we come together, that you would give us open minds and open hearts, that we receive the wisdom of each other, and that you would bless our mayor as he leads us into higher places. We thank you for this moment. We bind the works of hell, spirit of darkness, everything that's unlike you. We take authority over it now and release your presence, that we may be able to understand and reach and touch each other. We thank you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Come on, if you just act like you're in church for 1 minute and give me a hand clap of praise. I am so honored to introduce this mayor that I sit back in the shadows and watch. I want to say that he's doing a marvelous job. I think he's one of the best mayors ever to hit this city. I've been here all my life, and I thank God for what he's doing because he loves people. And so allow us to introduce our mayor, Mayor Mike Duggan. Would you receive him now?
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for opening your church to us, not just tonight, but on all the occasions we've had the ceasefire and anti-violence groups here. You've been a great center for everything we've tried to do. And thank you everybody for coming out. We're gonna get a chance to talk about a couple different things. If you haven't been to one of these before, I'm gonna talk to you about what's going on in District 4 on solar fields. I'm going to talk to you about what's happening on land value tax, and then I'm going to stay and answer every question that you have when that's done. All right, so here in District 4, you have a deputy district manager, Ebony DeBerry, and your business liaison, Afton Malone, and you're very shortly going to have a district manager so that we will be fully staffed. And your neighborhood police officers, I think you know, from 9th Precinct and the like. Can you see this, or is this too bright? Can we do something on this? Is somebody... Okay, we managed to create a glare so you can't see it, but I'm going to talk to you as best I can until they figure out how we can have a conversation that you can see. But I want to talk to you about what we're thinking about on solar fields. And it's very interesting, 2 District 4 neighborhoods have made the finalists of people who are proposing to have solar fields in their community. And so we've been talking about climate change for a long time. You know what's happening around the world, the flooding that's occurring in different places. And you know how hard Detroit's been hit. We've seen in the last 10 years 2 once in 500-year floods, right? And the summer of 2021, 30,000 Detroiters had their basements flooded. This is real. Climate change is real. And the idea that somehow it affects the coast and it doesn't affect us, it does affect us. And this summer, you remember what happened with the wildfires. There were days it was hard to breathe outside from the smoke that was blowing over from Canada. We have to address the situation here. And so I was asking the question, because in my business in politics, there are people who basically are in it for the performance. And way too many times on climate change, you hear people performing great speeches about how they want to save the planet, but what do? said, what if we became the city that didn't talk about it? What if we did something? And so what will we do? And so we looked at this and said, the city of Detroit has 127 municipal buildings powered by traditional DTE energy. We're talking about City Hall, we're talking about the police precincts. Is that better? Thank you. All right. We're talking about the police precincts, the firehouses, the rec centers. We said, okay, right now that's traditional energy. A lot of it is coal-fired plants. Well, in 2016, Detroit built our first solar field. It's called O'Shea. It's in the O'Shea neighborhood. It's at 96 and Greenfield. And these are the solar panels up here to the right. And we put those in. But at the time, it wasn't very cost effective, but we learned a lot on it. And then an interesting thing happened. We start to look at the numbers. And right now, the city of Detroit writes an $8 million check to DTE every year for the power for 127 buildings. I said, could we take that $8 million and use it to convert to renewables? Is that possible? And so we said, well, what would it take? It turns out that in order to do solar fields, we need 33 megawatts. I can't tell you that I could have explained a megawatt 6 months ago, but I understand it now. It takes 250 acres of solar fields to power 127 buildings. Said, okay, can we do that? So it wasn't financially viable before, but last year President Biden signed a bill called the Inflation Reduction Act. And he basically provided a 30% subsidy if you want to put solar panels on your roof or if government wants to create solar parks. There's a 30% subsidy. Now, all of a sudden, we could convert from DTE to solar panels and make it work pretty well. In fact, we could do it for $8 million a year. But what if we wanted to do community benefits to the houses in the neighborhoods that took the solar fields? What if we wanted to put money into the houses and the people who stuck and stayed in the area? Should they benefit too? If they do, it would cost us $10 to $11 million a year. City's got a $1.2 billion budget. Could we afford in the long run to pay an extra couple $1 million a year to make the planet safer and to help some of these neighbors? That was the question that we started with. It's the question City Council ultimately is going to have to answer. But back in June, I said, we're going to try this competition. And we're only going to go where neighborhoods propose us. And here's what I was thinking. In 2013, when I ran, I said every neighborhood has a future. And I believe that. I really did. I didn't think anybody should be left behind. And we've been able to do a lot of things. If you go to Kercheval over near Van Dyke, we've rebuilt that whole corridor. If you look at what we've just done at East Warren near Cadieux, right? We've rebuilt that corridor in a nice way. We put a lot of money into Chandler Park and Baldock Park. We just built a new community center, the Lennox Center in the Jefferson Chalmers neighborhood. At 7 in Van Dyke, we reopened the Lipke Rec Center. We've done a lot of things. But in between, we got some neighborhoods who feel like they've been left behind. We got some neighborhoods where you've got 6 or 8 nice houses on a block, but 2 blocks over, there's nothing there. And there's a lot of illegal dumping. And these folks, the interesting thing is, I won those precincts 3 straight times, 3 straight elections. The people in those neighborhoods thought I was going to do something. And I've always felt an obligation to do it. I said, could we do it with the solar fields? Would this be a way to reach the neighborhoods who thought nobody cared? And so we started this and said, how would you do it? And so we went out, and I started by going to the folks in O'Shea, where we put the solar panels in 2016, and I brought the neighbors in a room. And I said, let's talk about how we did this in 2016. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And they said, we liked the solar fields. It beat the illegal dumping that was along the freeway, but you didn't really let us pick our own boundaries. And you didn't really give us community benefits. If you want to do this right, let the neighborhoods pick the solar field areas and let the neighborhoods pick their own community benefits. And that's what we did. So we started a competition, and 27 groups came out and said, we want to pursue this. And so we went out and talked to 27 neighborhoods, and these are the meetings. And from the 27, here's what happened. In August, 19 said, we're serious. And so we went to some solar panel nonprofits, people who just want to change the world, good people that really know solar, and we said, we're going to pay you to be in the neighborhood and just talk to the neighbors about how does solar work. The questions were like, is my neighborhood going to get warmer? Is there some risk to it? They got a chance to spend time with them. And so those 19 started having serious conversations. In October, 10 of them submitted a plan. And we looked at that, and we picked 9 finalists. Now, I just talked to a gentleman there. He was in the 10th neighborhood. I wanted to know why he got dropped, but in his case, the head of the neighborhood association came to us and said, I don't really care how the neighbors voted, I'm against it. And we just decided, you know what, we're not going into a neighborhood where the neighbors are divided. We're only going into neighborhoods where the neighbors are united. So we're down to 9 finalists, but the thing is, we can only pick 6. 6 neighborhoods will get us 250 acres and power all 127 city buildings. And so between now and March, we're going to get down. I see Council President Mary Sheffield just came in. Council will ultimately be making a decision in March on this. But how are we going to get from 9 to 6? Well, here's the 9 that have become the finalists. So on the far northwest side, the Trinity Pickford area has made it. Near 7 Mile and Woodward, the Griggsdale and State Fair neighborhoods are there. District 3 actually has 3 sites: the Greenfield Park area, Mount Olivet, Van Dyke, and Lynch. This district, District 4, has 2 finalists: the Gratiot Finley area and the Houston Whittier Hayes area. And I'm going to show you the maps for District 4 and show you how this is going to work. And then I was really proud of the fact the very first one to submit was the O'Shea neighborhood. The people who have been living since 2016, they want to build another 60 acres of solar field adjacent to their current one. The people who know it the best were the first one to come in and say, we want to expand. That was really reassuring. So let's talk about what we've done. And before I do, I want to say thank you to these 8 groups: Green Door Initiative, EcoWorks, D2 Solar, My Interfaith Power and Light, Peachtree, Sustainable Community Farms, Walker Miller Energy, and Rescue My Nature. They actually sat, the neighbors were meeting every single week deciding what should the boundaries be, what should the benefits be. These solar panel groups sat with the neighbors every single week and helped them write the plan. So it wasn't the city telling them how to do it. They could do the plan with the people who really understand renewable energy, right? And so thank you to the 8 of them. And so these are the boundaries you can see from the far west side to the far east side. And if I drove you through these 9 finalists, I guarantee you the people in these neighborhoods think we've been forgotten. Nobody cares about us. This is a chance to go to those 9 neighborhoods and say, I really do care, and I really want to try to help. So these are the 9. And here's what we said. If you're within the solar field, the city's going to have to take all the property. It's got to take everybody's property, otherwise you can't build a field, right? So we said, here's what we'll offer. If you're a landlord or you own vacant land, we'll pay you fair market value. We've got 500 privately owned vacant parcels from land speculators in this area. I don't have any sympathy for them. We'll pay them fair market value, that's fine. They deserve that, right? Renters, if you're a renter in this area, you get 18 months free rent, and we will pay to move you to a house nearby. Pretty much all the renters we've talked to like this deal. Okay, they'll take the 18 months free rent. Here's the part that I'm most concerned about, and that is owner-occupied houses. Because you know what this city is like. You've got some people who say, I just want to get out of here, give me my check. You've got other people who say, this was my grandma's house. I raised my family in this house. I've kept this house up. I don't want to leave, right? We need to be respectful of those feelings, even if you're the only house on the block. And so we're trying to engage in these conversations. And so here's what we're saying to them. We will pay you double fair market value for your house. And then we looked at some of these houses, and the fair market value was $10,000. And so we started to talk to the neighbors and say, wait, we'll give you $20,000. And they say, that might be a fair price, but where am I going to move to for $20,000, right? It wasn't fair. So we said, we will give you a minimum of $90,000. That will give you a chance to get to another house and get set up. So now, I've had a couple say to me, I'm going to move into a senior apartment and I'm going to travel with my $90,000. That's great, all right? You can make that choice. So everybody gets a minimum of $90,000. I don't actually want to have to condemn somebody who's in an owner-occupied house. We might have to at the end, but we're going to try really hard not to do that, and I'm going to show you what we're doing. Now, if you're in the adjoining neighborhoods, and I'm going to show you some of these neighborhoods, you've got nice houses just a couple blocks away. What do you get? We said we would do a community benefit of $25,000 an acre. Every acre in the solar field, you can put $25,000 into your neighborhood. And we gave them a lot of choices. All 9 groups came back and said the same thing. We want home repair money for our houses. I said, okay, that's what you want, that's what we'll do. And so, depending on how big your solar field was, you could get $10,000 for your house, or you could get $25,000 for your house, and you can use them for energy efficient improvements. You can get new windows, you can get roof repairs, you can get a new hot water heater, a new furnace, better insulation in your house, energy efficient appliances, battery backup for power outages. Anybody like to have a battery that would power your house during a blackout? You can do any of these things. You pick what you do. And we did this over by the Gordie Howe Bridge. There was an area on Lafayette at 75 where the new truck ramp went right over these people's backyards. And so we gave them home improvements to basically soundproof their homes, new windows, central air, and the like. And we did 175 homes, and they loved it. But they got to pick within the limits what they wanted done to their house, and our team did good workmanship. So we're saying, what if we did this for the people who stuck and stayed? So this was our proposal, and here's the first area. And I don't know how well you're going to see it, but I'll describe it for you. This is the Gratiot-Finley area. The neighbors submitted this. The blue line is where the solar field is going to be. It's 24 acres. The red line is the benefit area. Everybody inside the red line gets the benefit. So can you see the blue and red lines in the back? Okay, so here's what we have. There are, see the yellow rectangles? Can you see the yellow rectangles in the back? That's a homeowner-occupied house. Within that solar field, we have 7 of them. So there's 7 homeowners in that blue area. There's 6 green boxes, those are 6 renters. I want to know how many of those homeowners and how many of those renters are willing to move. And that's what you're going to have time to show us. But all of these yellow squares out here, these are the people who are going to get, in this neighborhood, $17,000 a home to fix up their home. And here's what it looks like. So this is the area that is their proposed solar field. As you can see, there's almost nothing there. Just a block away on Hickory, look how nice that block is, right? Those folks have been staring at this illegal dump site for years. These folks will get $17,000 a house to fix up their home, and instead of a regular illegal dump site and a lot of other illicit activities, they'll have a fenced, secure solar field. And so when you look at this and you say, okay, that the picture I showed you, that nice block, if you can just see northeast where there's like 8 yellow boxes clustered together, that's Hickory Street. So those folks just a block away from the solar field would get $17,000 a house to fix up their homes. Now, do you see the odd way the blue line is cut in the northeast? Can you see how it's not square? This is the thing about solar fields, they don't have to be square. I didn't draw the map, the neighbors drew the map, but I can tell you almost for sure, you see the 3 yellow rectangles that are just above the blue line? I'd be willing to bet you those are 3 homeowners that said, I don't want to move. I want to stay in my house. And so the neighbor said, okay, and they drew the line under them so they could stay. So now they're outside the zone, they get to stay in their house, and they get $17,000 to fix up the family house, and they're going to be looking at solar panels instead of illegal dumping. This is why the neighbors are drawing up the plans. So this is one of the 9 finalists. The other finalist in District 4 is the Houston-Whittier-Hayes area, and it's bounded by Hayes, Leroy, Flanders, and Rosemary. And look at this. They said, let's take this 20 acres. Can you see in that 20 acres? There are only 2 owner-occupied houses in the whole 20 acres. And there's 5 renters. But look at all the houses outside. In their case, they would get $10,000 a house to fix up their homes. And again, I'll show you, this is what their proposed solar field looks like today. This is what they're staring at today. And this is what their neighborhood looks like a block away. Why does a neighborhood that looks like this have to have this a block away? And now's our chance to fix it. And so this is going to be exciting. And look again in the upper right corner. Did you see what they did? Right? They cut out a little square. I can't tell you this for sure, but I'd be willing to bet that that yellow box up there was a homeowner who says, I'm not moving. And the neighbor said, okay, you can stay. We'll leave you there, we'll go around you, and you're going to get $10,000 to fix up your house because you're in the benefit zone. You see what we're trying to do? So we've got 9 finalists now, and they have until January 31st, because we got to get down to 6. We have to come in and assess connectivity. We got to make sure there's enough power in the area to connect the solar fields to the grid. But other than that, I am saying to the neighborhood groups who are finalists, you got to deliver us 3 things. I want the signatures of the homeowners in the solar field zone. And we're making them offers. We're sitting down and showing them appraisals. We're talking to them so they know exactly how much they're going to get and whether they think it's fair. And so you have to show me how many of the people in the zone are ready to go, how many renters in the zone want to move. I know most do, but I want to see. Even if you're a renter, we shouldn't just kick you out without having a conversation with you, right? And then I want to know all the people in the benefit zone, how many of them want a solar field for their neighbor. Some people might not. Some people may say $17,000 isn't enough for me to look at a solar field. I don't know. And so January 31st, our 9 finalists are going to submit their letters of support, and we will pick 6 winners. And that's where we're going, and congratulations to the 2 neighborhood groups that are here that made it to the finals. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of meetings. You walk in, you've been living here for 30 years, and somebody comes in and says, let's put solar panels here, right? It takes a while to get yourself educated and talk to each other, right? But it's been a good process. Wanted to talk to you about one more thing before we take questions. That's something I've been talking about for a while, something I've given a lot of thought to, and that's the land value tax. Property taxes in this city are too high. They've been too high my entire life. And I'm trying to find a way to bring them down. Except, again, I don't think it should be my decision. I think it should be your decision. I think we ought to put it on the ballot, and next November you should vote on how it should work. I don't think the mayor or the council should decide it. So, this is the land value tax. It will be an average of a 17% property tax cut for homeowners in the city. 17% average. Now, how do we pay for that? Owners of abandoned buildings are going to have their taxes doubled. Parking lot owners, scrapyard owners, they're going to have their taxes increased because we're going to tax the land underneath and cut the taxes on the buildings like your house. Do you think homeowners should pay less and the owners of abandoned buildings, abandoned lots, scrapyards, and parking lots should pay more? Seems like a simple question, right? But people who are out there, I think largely supported by the scrapyards, are trying to confuse you. I'm going to make it so obvious today that they aren't going to be able to confuse you. So here's my thing. You should decide on November 5th. Nobody should tell you what to do. If somebody wants to say I'm against it, God bless you. This is America. But let the people of Detroit vote and decide for themselves. So here's our timeline. We hope to get this through the legislature because I can't hold an election without the legislature giving us authority. Nobody's done this before. City council has to make a decision to put it on the ballot. It goes on the ballot in November, and if the voters pass it, you get your tax cut on your first bill in 2025. That's how quickly we could do this if the city decides that's their direction. I want to thank the people who have carried the weight in Lansing. House Speaker Joe Tate has done an absolutely outstanding job, and Representative Stephanie Young's been our lead sponsor. Representative Whitsett, Carter, and Farhat have been sponsored. The Detroit delegation has been doing great. Our problem has been Democrats who don't live in the city, and we're going to talk about that and what we got to do. So, you probably know this, but how far out of line are our taxes with our suburbs? Detroit right now, if you're a homeowner means you get a personal residence exemption, you're paying 67 mills. Harper Woods is a touch higher, East Point a touch lower, but Warren, Ferndale, Southfield, Grosse Pointe, Dearborn, they're in the 50s. You all know this, right? People who live right across the border are paying less than you in property taxes. So, this is what the map looks like. The red cities are paying 60 mills or more. The blue cities are paying 50 to 59 mills. I don't want Detroit to be the high tax color. I want us to be comparable to Southfield and Warren and Dearborn and Grosse Pointe. How do we get there? Well, here's how the 67 mills works. If you ever pull out your bill, but basically you're paying 20 mills to the city of Detroit to operate. Another 7 mills for our debt. You're paying 6 mills to the schools operating, 13 mills to the schools debt. County is 17 mills. That includes the intermediate school district, the community college, the park millage, the zoo millage, all that stuff. And then a little over 4 mills to the Library Commission. That's what's on your bill today. And so here is the thing that happens. Today, buildings and land are taxed the same. Your house is taxed at 67 mills. The land under your house is taxed at 67 mills. It's the way it's always been. I want to change that, and I'm going to show you why. Because today in this city, look familiar? Thousands of vacant lots you can buy for $500. A vacant residential lot in the suburbs is $5,000. If it's in Bloomfield, it's probably $50,000. But in Detroit, that vacant lot is $500. And what it means is 30,000 vacant lots are owned by private owners. And this is how they look, right? So why do these folks do this? Because you know what the taxes are on those vacant lots? $30 a year. That's all they're paying because the value of the land is so low. This is why we have these speculators all over the place, is because they aren't paying anything. Who's paying it? The people with the houses, right? And we spend $5 million a year. It's not like these guys who are paying the $30 of the vacant lot are coming out and cleaning up their own vacant lots, right? Have you ever seen that? The city's having to pay $5 million a year to clean up the land they neglect. So why would they do that? I say it this way. There are 30,000 cheap lottery tickets. If somebody does a development, they're going to cash in with a big payday. I'm going to show you one guy. This is one owner in this city. He owns 261 vacant parcels. All those red dots, he's bought a little bit of the land everywhere. So if anybody tries to develop it, they got to pay him a big check. And this guy owns 22 acres across the city. He pays $6,000 for all of that. And he just waits for his payday to come in. This is what we have encouraged in the city. We have punished building and we've rewarded blight. That's what we've done for decades. And I'd like next November for you to have a chance to change that. So here's what I want to do. I want to cut the average bill for homeowners by 17%, because what we're going to do is cut the taxes on all the buildings. And we will double the taxes on the land. How does that work? Well, today you're paying 20 mills. If you vote for this in November, the tax on your home goes down to 6. Permanent, it's there. Unless you choose to raise it in the future, you would vote to lower your taxes. And it will cut the taxes on your improvements to 53 mills, and it'll double the taxes on your land, which is pretty much next to nothing. So the average homeowner gets a 17% reduction in 2025. 97% of all Detroit homeowners get a tax cut, and the legislation says nobody gets a tax increase. You're guaranteed that your taxes don't go up because of this. Now, the only one who could go up is this. If you have a big house and a little lot, you get a bigger than 17% cut. Right? Because we're cutting the taxes on the house. If you have a little house and a really large lot, we have some of those on the west side near the Rouge River where they have long lots, you could actually, in that case, have an increase. So we put something in the bill that says you can't get an increase. But 97% will see a cut. So when we double the tax on land, who sees the largest increase? Owners of vacant lots. They're doubled, right? Owners of vacant commercial buildings, they're going to get double. They're paying next to nothing. Owners of scrap yards and auto salvage yards, they're financing the campaign against us, but they're going to see a 50% increase. And as far as I'm concerned, this city has too damn many scrap yards and salvage yards. There's some people who disagree with me on that. We're probably going to hear from some of them tonight, but I believe they deserve the increase. And the owners of parking lots. So this cut applies to every property owner. So the uniformity provision of the Constitution says you have to treat everybody the same. You're going to get a 14 mil cut on your house. A store owner is going to get a 14 mil cut on their building. A factory owner is going to get a 14 mil cut on their factory. It applies to every single building the same. And everybody will have a doubling on the land. And so all of these folks will get a cut on their buildings. And let me show you how it works. This apartment building has been vacant for 15 years. They pay today $251 a year in taxes. Think about what your property taxes are. That apartment building pays $251. Now, 2 doors down, the Patterson family have been in their house for 40 years. See that nice little bungalow? They've been staring at that abandoned building. The Pattersons actually paid triple for that little bungalow what that abandoned apartment building pays. How is that fair? I want to cut the taxes for the Pattersons, and I want to double them on the vacant buildings. These are the conversations we're having in the neighborhoods. This auto shop's been vacant for more than a decade. It pays $400 a year in taxes. And when you come to visit the folks on this block, everybody who comes to visit them has to go past this abandoned auto yard. You think what they're thinking about your neighborhood before they get there. And right next door, Miss Marguerite Wynn has been there 35 years. She's been staring at that abandoned yard. She pays more in taxes for that house than the guy who abandoned the auto shop. You want to know why we have so much blight in this city? We punish buildings and we reward blight. And I want to change that. So we have more than 400 scrap yards and auto yards in this city. How many surfaces have you seen? We got used auto lots. If there is vacant land, people just find a way to stick cars and stuff on them because it's so cheap, and we have more surface parking lot than almost any city in the country because it's so cheap on the taxes. I want them to pay more. So Stephanie Young, when she wrote the legislation, said, I'm going to sponsor this. She lives in Grandmont, Rosedale, a neighborhood leader. She's plugged in, but she says, hey, wait, I want to protect a few things. One, side lot owners. She says, we got a lot of people in the city. In fact, 25,000 people in the city bought a side lot, right? That was a great thing that we moved that. We don't want people to be penalized because they bought side lots. It wouldn't be fair to have sold you a side lot and then say, we're going to raise your taxes on you, right? So she said, I want to protect side lot owners. Second, the urban farmers that have become a big part of this community, I don't want their taxes to go up. So we put in a provision that says urban farms won't have their taxes increased. And then the third thing is she wanted to make sure that property owners who have an NEZ today don't get hurt. And she said, if we do those 3 things, I'm going to sponsor the bill. And so the side lot owner protection, the average person in this city gets $184 on their home. If you have a side lot, your average side lot goes up $26. Almost no chance that one side lot is going to make you lose money. But Representative Young said, we got people who bought 2 and 3 and 4 side lots. And we put in the bill that up to 4 side lots, you will not have a tax increase. We want to protect the owners who've expanded their yards. And that's in the legislation. I want to talk about NEZ. Who here has an NEZ? Okay? A handful of people in the room. How many people understand NEZ? Okay, if you don't have an NEZ and you don't understand it, you're about to be really pissed when I tell you how this works. So there's a state law that says the city can designate up to 15% of the city to be in a neighborhood enterprise zone. It's a Kilpatrick-era initiative, and city council decides where those boundaries are. And if you're in an NEZ, you only pay 53 mills. The rest of the city pays 67 mills. And you see these green areas there? These green areas pay 53 mills. They are Palmer Woods, Sherwood Forest, East English Village, Hubbard Farms, Grandmont Rosedale. Those are the green. Everybody else in the city pays 67, which means the wealthiest people in the city pay a lower property tax rate than most of the city. How is that fair? I want to change that so everybody pays the same. You would think when you're saying, hey, people of lower income are going to get a lower tax rate, be treated like the wealthy, everybody would say, let's do this, right? But I got the scrapyard owners, finances, and people who say, oh, no, all kinds of noise. We're going to show you about that. So here's the problem with the NEZ. An NEZ only lasts 15 years. And basically an NEZ cuts your taxes 19%, land value tax cuts your taxes 17%. So most people do a little better on the NEZ, not everybody, but you have to file all this complicated paperwork. There's 30,000 houses in the city eligible for an NEZ in Sherwood Forest and Grandmont Rosedale. Only 9,000 have figured out the paperwork. It is so darn complicated that even if you're in an NEZ area, you almost need to know somebody to figure out how to get the paperwork done. I want to make the whole city an NEZ, and you don't have to fill out anything. You get it automatically, and you're all treated the same. And so what Stephanie Young said is, whoa, I got some folks in my neighborhood who already got their NEZ. I can't take that away from them. I said, fair enough. So what the legislation says is, if you have your NEZ, you can keep it. And until your 15 years runs out, you can keep it. If your taxes are lower than the land value tax, you get the lower tax, whichever is lower, but you keep the value of your NEZ. After that, when your 15 years runs out, everybody in the city is treated the same. A uniform tax rate for every homeowner. That's what we're trying to do. So, if this passes, remember I showed you this map, the red cities are the ones over 60 mills, and the blue cities are 50 to 59. If this passes, there's Detroit. We are now at a tax rate comparable to Southfield and Warren and Grosse Pointe and Dearborn, which is something that I would like to get accomplished. You might not agree with this, but I want you to be able to vote on it. And so I want to have this on the election. And we have some opponents who are up there making all kinds of noise. You can't even believe some of the arguments. Oh, they're going to force you out of your house by giving you lower taxes. Crazy stuff. But they basically have 3 strategies. Their first strategy, keep Detroiters from voting. They're up in Lansing saying, keep Detroiters from voting. Their second strategy, keep Detroiters from voting. And their third strategy, keep Detroiters from voting. That's their entire message. We can't trust the people of the city to decide what taxes they want. And they are literally in Lansing saying to legislators, don't let Detroiters vote. And this guy is our chief opponent. I don't have anything good to say about him. Okay? This is a Democrat who lives in Garden City. Okay? And he's saying, this is great. There's little proof the tax plan would work in Detroit or that city revenues would stay neutral. He's saying the 650,000 people in Detroit, you don't need to bother voting or considering your own future. I've decided for you that out of Garden City, I know what's right for you. I'm going to keep you from voting. This is what Speaker Joe Tate is fighting against. And he's going to get it done. He's going to give us a chance. But it's really aggravating when it's not the Republicans that get you. It's the Democrats from outside Detroit. But we're going to keep going until we get this through. So, there is so much false information out there that Jay Rising and our team put together an estimator. And we set up something that you can see what your tax cut would be, how much different it would be. There's people in this room going to save $50. There's people in this room going to save $500. If you have a big house on a small lawn, you're going to get more. If you have a small house with a big lawn, you're going to get less because we double the tax on the land. If you have an NEZ, you might come out a little bit ahead. But you can now go to the city website, DetroitMI.gov, type in your address, and it will tell you in 2023, your current tax bill, tell you what you're paying today, and it will tell you what you would pay under the land value tax, which pretty much tells you how much you're going to save each year. And so this is the way that this is going to work. This is what it looks like. Here's your 2023 taxes. This person on Fullerton is paying $1,453. Under the land value tax, they'll pay $1,254. That person would save $199. They can see that. This, if you have a HOPE exemption, you don't pay taxes today, that doesn't change. You still don't pay taxes. And forever. And if you have an NEZ, you probably will have almost no change for your 15 years, but when your 15 years runs out, you'd save $500 a year because you have a permanent tax. That kind person in the back was polite enough to ask the question. This is going to be a permanent tax cut unless the voters change it. Because the voters set property taxes in the state of Michigan by Constitution. So you can lower them, you can raise them. That's why they have to come to you for a millage, for schools and stuff, right? Only you can make that decision. For the next 10 minutes, I just want to try out the estimator, and then we'll go to the regular questions. But for the next 10 minutes, if you want to know your number, stand up, tell us your address, and we'll put it in, and we'll see whether you do well or don't do well. Who'd like to know how they would do under the LVT? Go ahead, tell us your address.
No, I'm only this tall. Check. I'm just kidding. 16552. LAWTON.
All right? And so today, you're paying about $691. You save about $113 a year. Okay? All right, who else?
12681 Westphalia.
And so, do you have a HOPE exemption now? Yeah, so you have a HOPE exemption today, you pay zero, you'll pay zero under the new system. All right? All right, you're happy with that answer, good. All right, go ahead.
15890 Beaverland.
So this is listed as a tax exempt property, so you won't change.
22469 Ray Street.
How do you spell that? That's right. Yeah. Ray, is that it? So you would save $127 a year.
5503 Bishop.
You would save $277 a year. All right, there's a happy customer.
9047 East Outer Drive.
You would save $302 a year.
160 West Golden Gate.
You would save $16 a year. So do you have a really large yard? Yeah, and so yeah. Go ahead, you want to do another one? But this is a good example.
West Hilldale.
What is it?
1L.
West Hilldale. Yeah, so if you've got a really big yard, I'm sorry, it's only a $16 savings. In your case, you must have a hope exemption today. We have you at 0. Okay, aren't you being charged 0 now? Okay, well, you are in our record as having a hope exemption and not paying any taxes. And do you know who's in charge? Chelsea Neblett, who's sitting directly behind you. So she is the hope exemption person. She's going to make sure that it stays at 0. Go ahead.
5925 Whittier Street.
And so this is 0. Do you have you have an NEZ? You have an NEZ today? Hang on, I was just asking the question. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it says that you have an NEZ today, so you would keep the NEZ. How many years are left on the NEZ, do you know? I have no idea. So when it runs out, you'll save $137, but in the first year, you'll keep the NEZ because that's lower.
16537 St. Mary's.
You will save $164 a year.
7028 Thatcher.
$254 a year. Go ahead. I can hear you. Just say it. Go ahead. I don't want you to have to get up. What's your?
11931 Lansdowne.
11931 Lansdowne. You would save $223 a year. Go ahead.
12,000 Nashville.
You would save $192 a year.
11458 Lansdowne.
I think it's LANS.
Oh.
There you go. You would save $186 a year.
14950 Flanders.
That's you gotta put a 0 at the end of that. You would save $113 a year.
14805 Rosemary.
$88 a year. Okay, we got one more. Go ahead.
Can I do both of my properties?
You can do as many as you want.
Okay, we want to do a couple of properties. 14851 Cedar Grove.
$59 a year.
Okay, 14891 Cedar Grove.
$74 a year.
One more.
Go ahead, many as you want.
15031 Cedar Grove. 15031
This
Cedar
is
Grove.
going to add up to buddy a few of these.
Okay.
And $126 a year. Okay.
I got one here, Mayor.
All I could do is tell you what it's going to be. I wish it were going to be bigger for everybody. Is that everybody?
We have an address here.
Okay, one more. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
2951 Lakewood.
$47 a year. So tell me about yours. Do you have a really big yard?
Oh, me? No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
14446 Rosemary.
$153 a year.
12610 Goulburn.
G.
Or Goulburn. There it is.
Okay. So this says you have a hope exemption now? Yep. Okay, you're still at 0. I'm glad to hear. The system's working, right? So you stay at 0. So you're getting a feel. Oh, we got another one in the back. Go ahead.
15303 Cedar Grove.
And your neighbor, $183 a year. Okay, so you got the idea, and you can see, the thing is, some people get smaller ones, some people get bigger ones. I just think you ought to decide whether to change this or not, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you an election. And so how many people here think the people of Detroit should get a right to vote on this? All right? And that's what we're trying to do. All right, that gives you a sense. If you get home and your friends are asking you, how does this work? You go to detroitmi.gov and just click on the estimator. It's right on our website. You can do it yourself just as easily as we did it here. You can sit with your neighbors and you can kind of see how is the neighborhood being treated and would this be a good thing?